joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash, and welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot, presented by our good friends over at Little Caesars Pizza. We're Stay Hot, they're staying ready with some hot and ready pizza for you all NFL season long. In the NFL season, the regular season is officially come to an end with the Sunday night game wrapping up. We finally know the full playoff bracket. And we're not going to talk about the actual playoff bracket today. We're just going to talk about some of the matchups. We'll save our actual prediction episode for Wednesday. But we do know that the bracket is the Ravens and Niners, of course, have the 1 seed. But the Texans will play the Browns. The Chiefs will play the Dolphins. The Bills will play the Steelers. The Buccaneers will play the Eagles. The Lions will play the Rams. And the Cowboys will play the Packers. But before we get into all of that and all the games that decided these matchups, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing today?
Very well. Banger of a day, banger of a slate in the playoffs, I think. None of those games look too much like
No, I think there's only a handful that are anything more than like 3 points.
Yeah, really good slate.
And the spread, of course.
Packers made it. We'll get into that later, but I can't lie, I'm pumped up. The youngest team in recorded history to make the playoffs.
Is that so?
It's just the mecca of football.
And you
up there in Green Bay.
You haven't earned a lick of that.
What do you mean I haven't earned it? I did what I needed to do. I held up my end of the bargain. I predicted them to make the playoffs. I said Jordan Love was next in line.
In spite of you, little man.
As an analyst, I did my part.
So true. I gotta say, before we get any further, Theo, congratulations on the Packers making the playoffs. Youngest team in history to make it. Matt, congratulations on winning the Stay Hot locks. The cycle is now complete. He was due.
He's leaving with something.
I'm leaving with something. And somebody said to me on Twitter, they called me Ryan Day when I did not pick more teams than Blaiden. I thought about that beforehand. That was my game plan. That was not an unfair thing to tweet, but I think my odds were better of me holding out for one of your two teams to lose than. And it came down to honestly, the Stay Hot locks were fantastic this year. It came down to the final drive. It was like a 30-yard difference between
for those
you winning
who are paying attention closely to the Stay Hot locks, you were treated in week 18. And I'm proud of all of us because none of us picked the Eagles. I almost
did. No, I almost did.
That's true.
I almost did, and that would have been a disaster. But I quickly changed my mind and picked the Niners, and they couldn't get it done.
I think 6 points at the end of the year is tough.
For just straight money line.
Because I know how it happened. It was just like you get behind a little and you're like, got to make this up. Got to make this up this week. This is the week I make it up. And it's very easy to do that to yourself forever.
Well, yeah, you would know. You've lost the last 2 years. How it happens.
I'm not hating. I'm not saying I'm better than you. But it is always funny. You look back on this,
come on,
and you're like, if I could just pick one game a week, I'd probably win. And I don't know how it ends up like that every time.
It's just fun to pick more teams. Is all. I'm in it for the love of the game.
That is a good point, Matt. If you
also wouldn't get your one pick a week right.
Yeah,
but if hypothetically, if you could guarantee one game a week, you would win, probably.
Well, you wouldn't have won it this year, actually.
You had what, 19?
I think
I had 18.
I had 18 or 17 at least.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, congrats to you two for making the playoffs. My team scored 0 points. Is the worst team in the NFL. Is not getting their second straight week, and they're not getting their pick.
That's okay.
We don't want it. Really. We don't want the Panthers weighing down the vibe of what could really be a great podcast.
Do we want to talk about the Bucs Panthers? Matt, do you want to talk about this game?
No. Let's start on.
I'm just mad. That's all.
We could talk about the Bucs, I think, but I think we should start with the Saturday games and maybe in the order that they happened, starting with Pittsburgh versus Baltimore. Pittsburgh coming in and beating the Baltimore backups in the freezing rain to punch a ticket to the playoffs. And yeah, it was against the scrubs on the Ravens, but they're still 10-7, and a lot of those games weren't against scrubs. And what do we think about the Mason Rudolph-led Steelers? Like, how will we remember this, Steelers team or judge them based on the totality of their season?
As mid.
Anything else besides that?
I thought Najee had a heck of a game.
Yes.
I thought in ugly conditions. I mean, the second that you saw it was an ugly condition division game, you should have known Steelers were coming out with that one. But dude, like, what thoughts do I have on the Mason Rudolph Steelers?
I don't know. Do we put? I'm just asking questions here. Like they make the quarterback switch, they go 3-0, or are we moved as a collective podcast by Mason Rudolph? I'm asking the question. The answer
No.
can be yes, no.
No, I'm not moved. But I think you look at the Steelers. If I was a Steelers fan, it's like I think Pickett has been not very strong. Their play calling has been really bad, and they're still winning. It's like, man, if you could even get sea level on that stuff, how good could the Steelers be? I mean, they're a 10-win team right now.
I was impressed. I was impressed with the free agent acquisitions that they brought in kind of in the middle of the year to shore up different positions up the spine of the defense. Eric Rowe forced a fumble. He rotated down and made tons of tackles on checkdowns, like really solid ones that just stop guys in their tracks. Mark Robinson came in and I thought played a nice game outside of that big Gus Edwards run. That was really the only time I noticed these second level guys for the Steelers really make a huge mistake. There was the touchdown also on that drive to Isaiah Likely where TJ Watt dropped back into coverage and that was kind of exploited and then they missed the tackle. But overall, I thought for a really snake-bitten unit that didn't look super like they looked a little old, on the back end. Patrick Peterson and Cam Hayward up front, and like, how much juice are they going to really have? Joey Porter Jr. is a rookie, but
Right.
he really showed out, and Patrick Peterson hasn't been a complete liability and has moved back to safety, and they found these guys like Eric Rowe off the street to kind of round the whole thing out. And the offense has been bad, but the defense and of course TJ Watt has had another really great season. I like the way that they performed.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at it now, though. 10 wins. I think 9 of them were by a single score.
Oh, yeah. I saw I can't remember who puts it out. It's one of the great tweets every year. Damn, I wish I could give him. Is it Brian Knowles? One of the Football Outsiders guys. He tweets out the one score game record switch at the end of the year.
Oh.
The Steelers would have been the last seed in the AFC if all of their one score wins were losses.
Yikes.
They just have that juice. Tomlin just has that juice as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, he's got the devil magic.
And he's got Najee and Jalen Warren too, who they've been great. These really the whole season, I think they've been.
Najee really has changed as a player. Man.
He has.
He's a totally different guy.
There were large parts of this year, even when myself, I was like, man, if they would just give Jalen Warren the full workload, they could be lethal. But I do think that the 1-2 punch of Najee and Warren is really what makes that backfield so dangerous.
Yeah, when Najee tries to get, I mean, it's literally like the mascot games with the little kids sometimes. Just like he stays up for comically long at the end, and guys are draped absolutely all over him, and he continues to push the pile forward. Yeah, he's been a blast to watch, and Broderick Jones he had some rough moments in pass pro, but with him and Suamalo, he had a crazy trap block in that game that sprung Najee, I think, or was it Warren? I can't remember. I just remember the trap block for a touchdown. He's a new addition. Like the line was able to move bodies against a Ravens defensive front that had some of their starters playing. So, there's nothing too Mickey Mouse about that. I don't think they'll beat the Bills, but it is funny that You don't want to rule it out. Like, I don't want to make an official prediction, but you've got the most steady coach in the league versus the most volatile quarterback. You know, who knows what?
Yeah, I
Anything could happen.
That could be a very, very funny matchup. I'm looking forward to that one.
I am too.
This will either be some crazy upset, or it'll be that
I can't
The Bills aren't winning close. The Bills are either like Allen comes out in a rhythm, like he after kind of a Bozo Gene game. Well, you can't even call it that because he turned it on in the second half. But he had all the turnovers. There have been stretches where he kind of comes out and like gets the ball out on time for a couple of weeks before kind of going back into disaster. Like maybe he comes out and just slices the Steelers apart, but also maybe it's the playoffs. He goes, I'm throwing a Hail Mary to the fullback mode as he has done in the playoffs before. Who knows what could happen?
Yeah, this will either be that Patriots game or it'll be they'll lose by 4 or something.
Right.
But yeah,
I also don't know how Tyler Huntley ever made a Pro Bowl, man. That guy did not have a stellar performance in terms of seeing the field and being poised. Funniest Pro Bowler ever.
I forget why he was getting so. If I'm not mistaken, they were like also losing all of the games he started during that run.
Yeah, they can't have been good. I mean, what are the? Yeah, I don't think their record was too great without Lamar. Maybe he hovered around 500, but he definitely didn't go on any kind of like Cooper Rush backup run.
I guess I thought he played more games. He was 1-3 and then 2-2 and then 0-1.
That's still like not good.
It's still bizarre because he made the Pro Bowl while playing 4 games.
Yeah, that was
Yikes.
Quite an interesting selection, and he's not good. Like he really kind of struggled to, I thought, see things at all, and all the fumbles in the game too were a good little twist. Although
2 touchdowns, 3 picks, 2-2 in your 4 games, and
he's in Orlando or whatever.
Legend.
Shout out to him.
Playing dodgeball. Absolutely great event that they hold down there.
We all know the Pro Bowl carries no weight. Like really, truly no weight at this point. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to really judge
at this point
the Ravens.
When did it carry weight?
They've been. When did it carry weight? Probably before we were born.
Honestly, they used to really hit back, way back. I'll give you that.
Way back.
They did.
Yeah.
Back in the day, back when Randy Moss was playing in the Pro Bowl.
They need a bigger incentive, man. That would fix the whole thing. $10 million to each winner.
$10 million.
Let's have a real football game.
Dude, if they gave every player $1 billion if they won.
If you win the Pro Bowl, you're a billionaire.
Where's that coming from? NFL makes that in 30 seconds, probably.
All David Tepper.
David Tepper is funding it after throwing the beer at the fan.
That's his punishment.
You want to talk about
TJ Watt got hurt was the other big story, and that probably makes them pretty fucked, I guess. I don't really know what else to say outside of that.
It is tough. But yeah, Matt, if we want to move on to the other game on Saturday, the Texans defeated the Indianapolis Colts. And I have to ask, did you see how many people were saying that final play was Shane Steichen's fault?
Look, he should have drawn it up for Zach Moss, but it was a good
It was a good play call. It was an open look. They should have hit it.
Blaiden, I owe you an apology for laughing at your Colts are underrated take from before the season. I couldn't see the vision on that at all. But sure enough, they were.
If they had Richardson, they would have made the playoffs.
They would have been sick. They would have been so sick.
They would have been there, man.
The only other thing that went against me for that is that Shaq Leonard was no good.
Oh yeah,
he ended up being a liability for them. I was counting on him being really good. They were still a very good team, and Steichen deserves a lot of credit for coaching this team to a good year. Despite, Gardner But they had Jonathan Taylor when he came back. He was electric, and even without him, Zach Moss was an effective runner for them.
Yeah, I think they're very Lionsy. We didn't talk about them too much over the course of this year because they always kind of spent it in, mediocrity in the hunt, in the low wild card.
Right.
Without Richardson, the ceiling was never really there to discuss, like, could they really make a run? But they're very Lionsy. I feel like you've got the play caller who knows how to sustain drives, little creative tweaks to basic concepts, like keeps people guessing. They've got the strong stable of running backs. The entire line has gelled and was playing really good football. They've got
Tony Soprano Jr.
The sneaky. They've got like the capable wide receiver one who, Michael Pittman, Amon-Ra St. Brown, like both. Who you can pick who you prefer over the other, but both not like huge superstars in terms of wide receiver ones across the league. And I feel like the Colts are in a better situation almost going forward because their play caller can't leave, and they've got the most explosive quarterback in the league coming back.
Well, I think that almost makes them not Lionsy.
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't think
because they have the quarterback.
I agree with some of it. I do. But having the quarterback is a big one, or at least the high upside quarterback.
Right.
I don't want to slander Goff too much.
Yeah, I mean, obviously their future, it looks very different because of that choice they made that the Lions didn't. But like as they're constructed right now, like a lot of the same things I like about the Lions, I also like about the Colts. They have the most underrated rebuild because they have that aspect coming back in a guy in Anthony Richardson who I think showed that he can play at a high level when he was healthy. It just comes down to him being healthy. But CJ Stroud is different. Play calling ain't just having a dude at quarterback. And they got a dude.
Holy cow.
They do have a dude.
It was all the Georgia game.
Yeah.
The Georgia game told the truth, I'm afraid.
It did tell the truth.
I don't know, man.
I don't know. The Texans have I feel like a decent amount of juice. You saw Nico Collins break out in a big way this year too.
Interesting.
What do you mean interesting?
Nico Collins is not super on the map, and then he has 1,300 yards the second CJ Stroud gets there, man. He's been nice.
He's that
Stroud.
He looks like Rodgers, honestly. Like his ability to be accurate at every platform, at every throwing angle with pressure in his face, and the accuracy has always been off the charts good, he avoided interceptions at such a great rate this year. Like how many did he throw the entire season? Like 4 or 5?
Not a lot.
Yeah, he's completely different.
Well, yeah, he threw 5 interceptions this year. Yeah. So it really reminded me like almost of Aaron Rodgers, like to have that kind of ball placement, to have that kind of aggressiveness while also not turning the football over hardly at all, like and the ability to move around a little bit and create and pick up the first down with your legs, even though you're not, necessarily a running quarterback or someone who's ever going to get, sniff 1,000 yards like Lamar or something like that. Still someone who can make plays on the ground. Like it really looks like they've got a guy on pace to be like a future Hall of Famer already. Like that really is what it feels like. It's super rare. The second overall pick team is in the playoffs the following season. And Nico broke out. Laramie Tunsil's a great player.
Nico is really nice. I don't want to slander him too much. He's been incredibly good this year. And Tank Dell too has been big for them. I know he's been big, but they've are they the team that surpassed expectations the most?
Them or the Rams?
Yeah.
I didn't feel good about both of those teams being in the playoffs is absolutely insane. If you would have told me that in August, I would have called you absolutely crazy. I flirted with 2-15, honestly, for both of those teams, and they played like I did give it.
That's why they got in, because just the
they were the spirit. They were the spiritual 2-15 teams this year of, young with just enough not even necessarily young in the Rams case, but actually they are very young.
The Rams are young.
They are very young.
Yeah.
They've got some old stars, but overall it was a super inexperienced roster. But yeah, them and the Texans both being here, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. And you got to give the Texans coaching staff a lot of credit too. Both of these teams, rookie quarterbacks, rookie head coaches coming into the season. Obviously Richardson, we didn't get to see, too much of, but begs the question. Coach of the year is down to, I think, Stefanski and these two, Steichen and DeMeco Ryans.
There's a guy I can think of that might deserve it too, and that's Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, right?
It's very interesting.
Like he's got the offensive player of the year candidate and the MVP candidate.
Well, see, but
we can't decide
that works
who
against
needs.
him. It's a beat expectation award, realistically. That's
then
what it's
LaFleur
always
has
been.
also got to be in there, right? Youngest playoff team in history. I don't know. I think you could go a lot of different directions with that award.
You could.
No,
I'm pretty sure the betting odds right now lean Stefanski, Steichen, and Ryans.
That's really interesting. I'm surprised Shanahan isn't top 3. That would probably be my vote, gun to my head right off the bat. But
it's
to turn around
problem,
a team like that, I guess.
He's just got such a great roster, and a lot of that has to do with him. So maybe you give him credit, but typically in these awards, it's like whoever beat expectations the most.
So McCaffrey's the only 49er coming away with any hardware, I guess.
Well, there's really not that much hardware that goes around unless you count all pros.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Anyway, Steph Curry makes you believe that you can do anything. I mean, look at me. He has me believing that I can shoot threes when I play pickup basketball. And the Curry 11s are specifically designed with ultimate bounce, grip, and stability to allow everyone to do their thing. New generations of ball players are coming up and showing the basketball world that the old rules do not apply. The future is exciting, fast, positive, and hungry. This NBA season, rock your favorite player and rep his shoes on and off the court. The Curry 11s are perfect for both the committed and casual ballers. The UA Warp Tech makes the shoe feel like it was designed for your feet, locked in no matter what you do on the court. Stop in your tracks with dual density UA Flow cushioning and traction, an emergency brake that you don't even notice. Steph's 11th signature shoe steps into the second decade of his sneaker career, pulling colorway inspiration from the wonders of a positive and modernized future on and off the court. Take these kicks with you when you leave the scrimmage and rep UA wherever you go. Do your thing. Change the game. The Curry 11 Future Curry is available now at currybrand.com. Back to the Texans.
I'm excited to see them continue to build it out.
Yeah, and I wonder if Slowick will be back next year. I think that he's certainly done enough for a head coaching job. But, man, you look at some of the candidates this year, and I don't know how many guys will end up being fired. Rivera certainly, I think, will be fired. But you get a guy like Harbaugh who could be hitting the circuit, and a guy like Bill Belichick potential, and a guy like Mike McDonald. There's a chance like Slowick
and Ben Johnson, and there's a lot of guys this year.
There's a lot of guys this year, and Slowick could be a guy who kind of doesn't get a call. And I think that they might run it back completely intact next year and really potentially be scary.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
They could run it back. But good season. They're in the playoffs. Listen, Colts fans, you missed the playoffs, but you should still be happy with the season.
Extremely happy with the season.
I think to lose Richardson and still end up where you are, you have the coach. And from what we saw from Richardson through the first few games, he looks like the guy.
One more thing about the Texans. I don't know if we have enough time to do a full episode on our award picks. Give me Will Anderson Jr. for Defensive Rookie of the Year as well. I think, and Offensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, I got to sit and think about it.
It's tough, man. Between Stroud and Puka,
I got an answer for that one, but
we know you do, Matt.
Let's save that Puka for maybe a future take on an episode. Unless you want to give it right now, Matt.
I would go with Puka.
You would?
Oh, really?
Ooh,
I thought you were going to say
gonna
Stroud.
say Stroud as well. You
It's a
only
close
break
one, though.
records that get held from the 1960s. That's been held since the 1960s once. That's pretty crazy.
It is. He's had
I'm sorry. Stroud is awesome. And like he's obviously probably just a bigger name because he's a quarterback, but the guy if you can set a record that hasn't been broken, in 60 years and it's still not enough, what are we doing? Why just call this another quarterback award or whatever?
Yeah.
Stroud has been incredibly, incredibly good, and maybe he would have broken some records if he hadn't been banged up for a couple of games. But man,
I think it's somewhat forgivable to give it to Stroud because I think that he might rank higher as a quarterback than Puka ranks as a receiver his first year.
that's because there's less quarterbacks, I think.
Less
Good
good
I guess
quarterbacks than there are
so.
good
If
receivers.
you're an
And
average
a lot of
receiver,
quarterbacks
you
are
rank at
having a
like 80.
down
If
year.
you're an average quarterback, you rank at 16.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't really care about that debate. I'm gonna work
I
it out
don't
in my
really
head.
care. I'm not going to be heartbroken either way. Stroud is also very good, but I'd give it to Puka.
Puka. All I'll say about Puka is that I'm glad that on the Stay Hot account there exists a video of me calling him
There does.
the sleeper of the draft.
That was a good poll.
That was a good
That
poll.
Was a really good poll.
The other two names, Fehoko for the Cowboys, didn't quite.
But this is the beautiful thing about sleepers. This is why everyone should always talk sleepers. If you say some 5th round wide receiver, defensive tackle, or whoever is going to be good and you're wrong, nobody cares.
Right.
If you're right, oh my God.
That's
And it
true.
works the other way around for first round draft picks.
Yeah, that is
kinda.
absolutely true. You can be. Yeah, that's a good point. This year it's gonna be the all sleeper.
It's just being
Draft.
positive versus negative. You say something negative and you're wrong, that sucks. If you say something negative and you're right, like nobody cares. It's like, duh, of course.
That's true.
Everyone knew that.
That's true.
Well, we could talk about the Bucs and Panthers, but I don't think we will.
I want to talk a bit about the Bucs. I do want to talk a bit about the Bucs because they are in the playoffs and they're another team that we haven't given a ton of love to all year. But I don't know. I thought Baker had kind of a concerning performance. We're not saying good things about
Baker
the Bucs.
wasn't playing so hot.
No, he was not playing so hot. He was kind of indecisive, hesitant, and missed some big throws. They weren't really putting points on the board. They let the Panthers hang around. The Panthers almost took the lead early with a touchdown. Did you see this play, Blaiden? The Antoine Winfield fumble?
I didn't. No, I did not pay attention to this game. I think I saw you tweet Baker Mayfield having a disaster.
It was 0-0, I believe. Right, obviously, in the split screen scenario, you've got the Panthers on the top screen, Bucks versus Falcons, who at the time were absolutely having a dog fight. It was like 14-14, like touchdown drive after touchdown drive. Mm-hmm. And the Bucks are like playing bad and Baker looks banged up and he's missing throws. And then Bryce rolls left, finds Chark over the top, like on the move. Looks like it's going to be a sure touchdown. Chark reaches towards the goal line, like dives, and Antoine Winfield drills him and he fumbled into the end zone.
Oh,
and
no.
the Tampa Bay Buccaneers picked it up, and what looked like a sure touchdown turned into the Buccaneers.
This is the Higgins play against the Chiefs all over again.
Yeah, it was a lot like that, and it was while the Saints and Falcons looked like they were having a special game. This huge wrench just got thrown into absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Do the Panthers did they have the worst offense of all time, man? Because
I don't think they had the worst.
Yes, I'd believe you, dude.
Was it worse than the Jets even this year?
Dude, it had to be. They went maybe not.
Let me look
it's
at
just freakishly bad, man.
It's tough to be a I was rooting for the chaos of the Panthers winning. I don't have anything against the Bucs, but as Ritter and Carr were exchanging blows, I found myself rooting for at least the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to like go down, or like the Panthers to really make it interesting, and like rooting for the Panthers just put a single
You were rooting
point.
for the Panthers to play an interesting game and you lost. Yeah, man.
Not only to play an interesting game, just to like put a point on the board, because that's what would have made it an interesting game.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah,
are
man.
there in terms going into this game. I'm sure it's not updated. The Panthers were 29th in yards per drive, ahead of New England, the Giants, and the Jets. And they were 31st in points per drive. So yes, the Jets, who were dead last in both of those metrics, had, I don't know what the
We
EPA
had 0
says,
this week and they had 17.
Ooh,
Run those numbers
I don't know
again,
if
man.
that'll hold up. Yeah, we'll see about the Bucs.
It's nasty.
They might beat the Eagles. How shitty the Eagles are.
The Eagles have been playing awful. They've been so bad.
I like the
And
way
AJ Brown got hurt.
Mm-hmm. I like the way that Canales has played for Baker. They're a very run pass type of team. They do limit what he can do, but when they do throw it with him, a lot of the times they are under center. They do the play action, or they spread it way out like he had in college, and that's kind of what he majored in when he was having success in Cleveland and when he was having a ton of success and won Heisman in Oklahoma. So, they kind of took stuff off of his plate and then played the hits when it came to like things that Baker is good at. And you go from Tom Brady to Baker Mayfield and you make the playoffs. I think that Dave Canales has got to be proud. And I think the Bucs have to feel pretty good firing Leftwich and moving to a different offensive coordinator if you're missing with Brady, or not. They didn't miss with Brady, but
they were a top 10 EPA per drop back.
At least
Like
stayed
top
the
10
same.
passing offense by EPA.
Yeah. I don't think they have the juice to make a deep run, but they're playing a really shitty, like falling team in Philadelphia right now. They'll have their shot, and some of their rookies, Yaya Diaby and Kalijah Cansey, they've made some splash plays, and their defensive front has been nice. And Antoine Winfield Jr. just keeps making the gigantic plays for them, and snubbed for the Pro Bowl. Good for him for changing the game. And they were the least
Interesting to see what
shitty
direction
NFC
they
South
go
team.
to. I guess that's kind of my thought on them, because it's a nice season. But do you believe in Baker for another year, or what do you do?
And they didn't ever get a contract done with Mike Evans, and he's going to be a really coveted asset. I mean, maybe they'll franchise tag him and he'll play for that, and it'll all be fine. It's tough to see them letting him walk after a season like that, but who knows? Levante David too I thought a really strong season this year at his advanced age. Like, those guys who won the Super Bowl back with Brady, the ones who are still around, like they had some studs, Wirfs, and that was a great team. And it's the remnants of it have, continued to be
they're still
potent.
good enough to go win the worst division with an easy schedule. They still got it in them.
Yep.
They were 9-8. That's all they needed.
That's all they needed.
All they needed to do. But the Saints were playing in this same window, and they crushed the Falcons, even though in the first quarter looked like a game. Ritter was perfect with like 150 yards,
And then he
2
sucked.
tutties.
Oh,
Dog. Thought he was back.
he
Matt, I know
became
you
so
thought
ass.
he was back. Yeah, it went downhill. It went downhill really quick. But even though the Saints, did everything they could in this game, the Buccaneers winning sealed their fate, and the Packers winning also sealed their fate.
What did you think about them running that touchdown at the end?
I think it's look.
That's the greatest Jameis moment of all time. That is the greatest Jameis. He's had some great ones. The fact that they were sitting there, the season kind of out of their control at the 1 yard line. The fact that they he was like, "Oh, Jamal's a funny guy. We're gonna get him a touchdown," and they got him a free one after lining up to take a knee. The fact that Jameis went rogue and did that for Jamal Williams of all people, just like the goofiest.
Everyone loves
tandem.
Jamal Williams. I like,
and it just pissed Arthur Smith off. And
I get it's like
insult,
bad
the
sportsmanship.
injury
I get it's
of
like
his
bad
career.
sportsmanship, but it's funny, bro. I can't.
Jameis and Jamal just fucking around, like dancing on.
The season's over. Like, what are you gonna do? Suspend me?
Dude,
Like,
it's not sportsmanlike, but when it's those two doing it, you know that they weren't trying to be like. They weren't trying to be like. They're like, oh, we got to get Jamal a touch. Like they weren't even thinking about the Falcons.
Yeah, they don't care about like this division rivalry. They're just like, let's get Jamal Williams.
I wonder how pissed Dennis Allen is, because obviously they went against his instructions, kind of broke this unwritten code, but at the same time they also like just rubbed it in a division rival's face after they beat him. Like,
the first thing he said is it's not them, it's not the Saints. I thought it was a little lame.
It definitely,
like if they were intentionally trying to do that, like that would kind of like really.
Arthur Smith was 100% right to be. He was right, upset. Yeah.
But there's like a level of mad you should get about that. Like you can get, like you are in the right to be upset, but you can still get so mad that it's like, okay, dude.
Well, I don't know if he was an unreasonable amount of mad. I think so. Fucking yapping at.
He might have been.
Dennis,
the season was over. You had like
calling him bullshit is an acceptable response. I think that he behaved appropriately. I think Jameis and Jamal Williams are just, they bring kind of a boyish charm to the game.
I think the Falcons lost by 30, and maybe you shouldn't have lost by 30.
AJ Terrell is the best corner that gets picked on constantly, man. It's tough to push AJ Terrell's agendas. He's always getting like in good position and then dunked on these last 2 years. A.T. Perry, shout out him. He came up with some huge 50-50 balls.
Yeah, he had a couple of insane catches.
Shout out Derek Carr.
Shout out. Man, they got
career day for Derek Carr.
Their wide receivers dunked on everybody. Catch. Olave did, and Shaheed did too. Like they were just dunking on everybody.
This is another team that I don't really know what to think of.
Cap hell, baby. They're doing it again.
I don't know what on earth they're going to do. As far as the Falcons go, they might have lost this game and had the worst record. I feel a little bit clear about what exactly their next move is. And kind of hitting the reset button a little bit, but at least with a couple of big time players.
Yeah, that's a conversation for the offseason, what those two teams are going to do. They were just both mid, and I think the Panthers, the Saints, they were mid through roster construction, and why am I saying the Panthers? And the Falcons were mid just because I think of limitations they kind of put on themselves, whether it be the scheme they run or their personnel decisions, like not going after Lamar Jackson, who they probably wouldn't have got, but it's like, damn, they should have at least tried to raise the price on the Ravens,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Ritter limited them.
Yeah, he did.
And I hate to say that, but there's times where it's good stuff, but there's just too much inconsistency and keeping it safe. And most importantly, he is just terrible under pressure. The sacks are just, like it's like Howell almost. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, that's pretty much what it is. It's like, yeah, he's going to have some games if you let him throw it enough. Like he's not an NFL level, like top 100 quarterback in the world or whatever. And I wish he had some good games.
I wish he came in in a better quarterback class, so we didn't have to hype him up as QB1 in any particular class, and he could have been a QB5 like he was supposed to be, and always just kind of been a charming story instead of someone who really had high like first round talk throughout an entire draft process. Because he was not good this year.
Well, on the bright side, Pickett was the only one taken in the first round.
Look, there were no good options. There were really no good.
Ritter gets slandered like he's a first round pick, man.
One good.
This is one thing that's bothered me all year.
Hasn't been given a chance.
Good Lord!
Shut up about Corral. It's over.
He's due.
It's week 18 and we're talking about Corral. Oh, how does anyone listen to us?
If you're anything like me, trying to get last minute tickets to see some of your favorite events, whether that be sports games, concerts, comedy shows, whatever, the best place to get those tickets is the Game Time app. Because whether you're trying to see Ohio State football, or maybe you're trying to get ready for the college football playoffs, you don't want to be scrambling, trying to find the best seats. You don't want to be unsure of where you're going to be sitting. You don't want to be getting gouged out of crazy prices. So the best place to get last minute tickets at the best price, where you can even see a preview of your seats before you even buy them, the best place to do all of that is Game Time. So use the code BlaidenK. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app or go to gametime.co and use the code BlaidenK to get $20 off your first purchase. You're already getting the best price. You're already getting last minute tickets. Why not take an extra $20 off? Make your life a little bit easier. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the code BlaidenK. That's BLAIDENK to get $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Do you want to talk about the most disappointing team in the NFL?
The Jacksonville Jaguars. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
A horrific
This
L.
one I did not catch much of.
Yeah, I was paying mostly attention to the NFC South hoops in this window, but I definitely had, was keeping tabs on what was going on. And I think the main thing that was happening more than Trevor Lawrence, although he's the bigger story, was all of the Titans skill position players played like gods in this game. They were breaking tackles left and right. Spears had a couple great runs. Derrick Henry went out on top. Hopkins had like two absolutely like unreal catches. Like they were just dunking on the second and third level players for the Jacksonville Jaguars left and right, and were able to put up a bunch of points. And then on top of that, obviously, Lawrence was not super sharp at all. He missed. To put it lightly.
Many such cases.
Missed a few bad passes. And I keep thinking about, like, where do you go from here? Because you're coming off a season where you won a playoff game, and then you add Calvin Ridley. You think that's the missing piece. The connection between him and Trevor is lackluster, to say the least. He was the third option until Christian Kirk got hurt. And he wasn't playing like bad or anything. It's just like, you would have expected like an AJ Brown or a Jamar Chase type of addition to this offense. And then on top of that, like, they were one of the most inefficient rushing teams in the league, and their defense has been lackluster, to say the least. I mean, they have back-to-back number one overall picks on this team. And
yeah, I think,
what do they have to show for it?
Well, I don't think a coaching change is out of the realm of possibility for them.
Really?
Here's Doug Peterson after winning the Super Bowl with the Eagles. 9 wins, 4 wins, 9 wins, 9 wins. And this year, they really didn't feel well coached. And he gave up play calling duties to a guy who really didn't show a ton of talent doing it. So he's a bit like Sirianni, where it's like, what do you do here? The team is like making silly mistakes. You haven't hit the 10-win mark. Like, things totally went off the rails. It ended poorly in Philadelphia. Like, is this really, especially we talked about earlier, the coaches available? Like, if you really think with Lawrence, you're still attractive enough of a job to upgrade, like I could see him being a surprise fire, just like he kind of was in Philly. Like, even though he only won 4 games that year, like, I think he was still riding the high of the Super Bowl a little bit. And even the year before that, I believe they won a playoff game the year prior. something. No, they had been to the playoffs the year prior to that, and then they had won one the year before. And he was kind of a surprise let go after just one down season, but it's a direction that I think they could go in. And they're not moving on from Lawrence, obviously. Like, they're kind of nor should they move on from Lawrence.
Yeah,
but
I know a lot of people are kind of hopping on the Trevor Lawrence is a bust train, but
a bust is a pretty strong word for what happened.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
It was not a season where he took any kind of leap, but I think if you're the Jaguars, you've got to tinker with the offensive line pretty heavily. You got to change some things up in the coaching staff and figure out a way to be consistent on early downs. Really, I thought that was the key thing. In this game.
It's got to be the offensive line. It's just not good enough, in my opinion. I mean, Lawrence is great at like dealing with that type of stuff, sure, but if you can't like consistently run the ball and your quarterback's consistently under pressure, I don't care who's back there, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's they've invested a decent amount into it, and it hasn't made too big of a difference. And
yeah,
you
guys
can
like
add another receiver if you want, but you already have so much money there. I don't know if that makes a ton of sense. I think it's got to be offensive line. That'd be my number one thing for them.
And their pick last year, Anton Harrison, he didn't have a terrible season. I think when you look at the offensive line for the Jaguars, you know, he was the least offensive part of it for me. So that's a good sign. Lawrence shows a lot of really high level traits, but he is not as consistent and with his decision making and with his accuracy as the top guys in the league. I think those are the things that we've always been waiting for with him, for it to fully click for like a long period of time, like starting to stack game after game after game of like high level play. But it hasn't really happened. And you look at it now, it's like you look at Jordan Love, what he's done right now. He's now gone on a 7-game stretch or 8-game stretch of like really good play. Like, that's really all we've gotten from Trevor Lawrence to some extent. Like, if we're going to stack him up amongst quarterbacks, like, has he shown more than like a Jordan Love or a Kyler or a Kirk Cousins at this point? Like, yeah, I think that as a huge fan of him, I still believe that he is going to rise in the quarterback ranks. But when we're doing him this offseason, Trevor definitely, I think, deserves to fall a little bit this season compared to where he was when he closed out the year last year. Not too much. It's not a free fall. I do think that there are things they can change and the Jaguars can bounce back, but it's hard to say they're not the most disappointing team in the league this year. And I mean, who else would it be?
And there's probably a few teams that missed their win total projection by a little bit more. Although I guess the Jaguars were a very ugly 9-8, and it's sort of the way that they did it. Were like they were the 1 seed at one point.
Yeah, they had a 99% chance to make. They had a 99%
5 of their last
chance to make the
6
playoffs. Seattle is up there for most disappointing, I think. But
do you count the Jets because of the Rodgers injury?
Well, yeah, I think if you talk about injuries, the Chargers are incredibly disappointing. The Jets are incredibly disappointing. New England didn't really, I guess Christian Gonzalez got hurt, but they're super disappointing, their offense. But, Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence only missed a game. And for them to be out of the playoffs, lose the division in what looked to be the easiest division. And instead, now it looks like you don't even have the best quarterback in your conference. Like, that's pretty bad.
Not a great look. Good on the Titans, though, for playing the spoiler a little bit.
Derrick Henry, what a career in Tennessee.
Yeah, his speech. I mean, I'm not really any sort of Titan fan. His speech that he gave, I was like, damn. That's a good heck of a run.
He's got to be top 3 most accomplished current players, like football players overall, working right now. I think when you look at, he's a Heisman winner. He had like the most decorated, like greatest high school career of any player when you look at his numbers there, like putting up 3,000 yards. And then he comes into the league, rushes for 2,000 yards, almost does it twice. Like offensive player of the year. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody who can say they did what he's done at all three levels of the sport, high school, college, and NFL. Like,
yeah,
I think that he's an easy Hall of Famer.
Definitely. Oh, I would.
Potential like first ballot type stuff. I almost think if it's just the NFL stuff, but man, as a total football career from beginning to end, like, man, he would be all time.
If there's a football, not a pro football Hall of Fame, but just a football Hall of Fame. Yeah.
He won like everything a running back can win. He carried his team year after year, carried them to some playoff wins, like one offensive player of the year. I won Heisman. Like, there's not that much more that you can accomplish as a running back. And
an MVP and a Super Bowl MVP, that would be it.
I have to agree.
And when you look at the carries that he has gotten and the numbers that he has put up, it's almost maybe not quite Tom Brady's levels of longevity, but he's such an outlier in terms of how many more carries he has than absolutely everybody else working today, and still, has games like today where he sends the Jaguars home. It's a pretty perfect career. His approval rate amongst that fan base has to be damn near 100%. Like, no one can say he fell short in terms of like what he can do as a running back.
Yeah, I'd put him in the Hall. I think I agree. His total number of accolades is going to be tough to match up with a lot of other guys in the Hall, but I think if the voters can recognize that running back is just a shorter-lived position, and this guy was undoubtedly at the top of his game, and not only or at the top of the running back position, but if you could pick any running back from the last 5 years, you would probably pick Derrick Henry. In his best season.
He'll be the defining player. I mean, he's the defining back of the 2020s so far, and you can go back to 2019. McCaffrey's been a baller as well. Played for, obviously, now a Super Bowl contender in the 49ers, but he's been banged up, and he never had a 2,000-yard season like Henry did. Like, it's not a very strong era for running backs. It's Chubb, obviously, up there as well, but Chubb hasn't accomplished what Henry's accomplished either.
No.
So
McCaffrey has had 2,000, just
all purpose. You're right.
Yeah, all purpose.
He had 1,000. That is pretty crazy. But he has been banged up more than Henry has.
McCaffrey would have a good argument up against Henry for which best season would you take. He really would.
You're right. The year that who Reggie was it Reggie Bonifan who was running back to that year with like 5 carries or whatever we figured out.
Yes. That year it was like running back 2 had 16 carries.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that was pretty nuts.
But Henry held up to that same type of workload. I mean, I think he got the ball like 400 times, which is such like a 2006 stat. It's ridiculous.
Some LaDainian Tomlinson type of.
Yeah,
seriously,
used to give the ball
like
to
some real Emmett Smith shit that they were doing in the middle of
rushing
the 2020s.
Record is never getting even close to touched.
Eric Dickerson?
No, Emmett's.
Oh, all time. Yeah. No, that one is not.
No one's ever. I can imagine a player has like a single year that all of a sudden is like something really insane. All time. Dude, Derrick Henry is like halfway there right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. We're going to have to see mech suits that prevent injuries to a pretty crazy
The mutant cyborg era
The mutant cyborg era will.
The only thing. Yeah, the 2 records, that one and Jerry Rice's receiving record.
The all-time receiving record?
That is never getting broken.
Yeah, it is.
By who?
In our lifetime.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. Dudes are getting closer. The game's going in that direction. The Emmitt Smith record, people are going away from it. We're getting farther from that. The game's going towards that. Justin Jefferson,
but
man. Look, it'll be tough. It can be done. It can
you
be
have to
done.
have 2,000 yards for like
I think that's
how
way
many
more
straight
doable.
years is it? You would have to have.
If Emmitt Smith is halfway to, or if Derrick Henry is halfway to Emmitt Smith, I might agree with Matt. Like
Emmitt Smith, totally unbreakable. Nobody's seeing 4,000 carries in a career ever again. Now, I'll give you that Jerry Rice's record is like really insane because you have to play until you're like at least 37, 38 years old.
when they changed it,
Rice had
done
1,200
sometimes.
yards at 40, man.
when they
Like,
change it all to flag, someone's breaking
Then-
Emmitt Smith's record.
I'm just saying, somebody I think could eventually, with the way that the receiving yards is starting to, I mean, the 2,000 yard in a single season record is like obviously going to get broken here soon. It's just a matter of time.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. People have been knocking on the door here recently.
I think in our lifetime, the Jerry record will be gone. It still will be one of the all-time most impressive because of how long it's lasted when like it just shouldn't have lasted this long. This should have been long beaten.
Yeah. Yeah, I could agree with that. But let's talk about the Packers now. I'm sick of waiting. This episode of Stay Hot is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you just pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. And they also now offer Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. A couple weeks ago, I hit a big one on Prize Picks with my Browns versus Jets play with Njoku and Flacco and Breece Hall, and you can too. So head on over to Prize Picks, use the code STAYHOT, and they will double your first deposit, or prizepicks.com/stayhot and use code STAYHOT for a first deposit match up to $100. So what are you waiting for? Head on over there.
Okay, let's talk about the Packers. What did you think about your Packers?
I don't know. I feel like the dog who has caught the car and now doesn't know what to do with it. I mean, they've hit. Jordan Love played absolutely out of his mind good outside of the fumble.
Dude, Jordan,
but
I thought some of those throws that Jordan were making, man, earlier in the season, we were saying, can he create? What does he do out of structure? That type of stuff. There were a couple he had here, man, where it's starting to really, really show for him, dude. I'd be really excited if I were you.
I mean, I am really excited, and
Off the
the
back foot, man, it was ridiculous.
And really, the crazy shit that he has been able to do, like off the back foot with his arm, that was always the billing with him. And then really, through his time as a starter, when he has gotten the opportunities before this year, the thing that stood out to me wasn't quite that. It was against the Eagles, getting the ball out as soon as it hits the top of your drop, right? Like hitting hole shots, like throwing with anticipation. That was what was all there versus the Lions a couple years ago. Like he had some really great intermediate digs against the Chiefs. There was a screen that went off kilter and he threw it down the field anyway and hit that. And he was always pushing it down the field to Javonte Adams one-on-one, which I thought was a good decision. But the whole time, like he was that talented, like athletic, developmental prospects. Like he always had that kind of thing in his bag. What was really getting me excited was, he was playing in structure, and LaFleur's structure is great. And the Packers really build things out like no one else. And they have accomplished what the Steelers couldn't accomplish and the Patriots couldn't accomplish, what the Saints couldn't accomplish, with what the Colts couldn't really accomplish without sucking and getting Andrew Luck.
They kind of did. But
yeah, they didn't
accomplish. It does not count.
They win a year with Curtis Painter. No other team has been able to have a superstar quarterback and prepare for life before he's actually gone. And what Ryan Gutekunst did, drafting Jordan Love, following in the footsteps of his predecessor, he really motivated Aaron Rodgers into 2 more MVP seasons. And then when, like, as soon as he slipped, like, just went to the quarterback who now had time to sit on the bench and learn, and came in like as that dude. And I think made really clear steps developing on the bench from preseason to preseason and from spot start to spot start. So I think not having an owner and just the history of that organization has allowed them to be patient. They have been on top of it in terms of the quarterback archetype you want. They've always gone with the athletic freak, the guy who can make every throw. They've paired him with an offensive coach for like McCarthy with the West Coast stuff. I guess I don't know what Holmgren's tree with Favre, but McCarthy was on the cutting edge, and then getting someone from that Shanahan tree in LaFleur and pairing him with a guy like that. It's been their formula. It's hit all 3 times, and just no one else quite has the patience or the foresight, or they're worried about their job security to think that far in advance. And and the Packers just win, man. It's crazy. They did a great job. The receiving core is nuts. They know how to coach an offensive line. They've got the home field advantage. Yeah, it's all
Their
good.
Colors are amazing. I mean, it's just everything with them.
They can't keep getting away with this, man.
Oh, but you don't need to get away with it that often. You just need to get away with it a couple times, and then it sets you up for 15 years. They've gotten away with it more than
every other team in
Well, I will say this. There is one other team that did pull this off. Kansas City.
Yeah, I guess they did. But I
know Alex Smith wasn't on the level of Aaron Rodgers, but he was like he was very good.
He was.
When he was with the Chiefs. And going Mahomes wasn't necessarily like we're trying to replace Alex Smith because he's bad, more than like
what about the Ravens? Did the Ravens do it with Lamar?
Yeah, I guess that's not a bad call
too. And that's a little bit different because Flacco was
not as good as Rodgers, but Rodgers was kind of struggling. I think the Chiefs and the Ravens are a good call where they did, they got the athletic guy when they didn't necessarily absolutely need one at that point. And then you look at the Bears, and
I'm sorry, Lamar did come in like that first season.
He played in the playoffs. Did he get benched, or did Flacco get benched, or did he get
Flacco got
injured?
Benched in the middle of the year, and then Lamar came in and they won out essentially.
Yeah, because I remember when I guess I don't remember.
And then I think Lamar
the
struggled in the
story.
playoffs maybe, and then Flacco came in at one point. I could be totally making that up in my head.
It's close enough though. They could have probably started
I agree.
Flacco, and they went and got the the freak that was falling in the draft, and they win.
Agree.
That's a good formula. And then you look at the Bears, they drafted the guy who was taking care of the football, didn't have the tools that Mahomes did, didn't have the freaky plays that Mahomes did, but seemed like a little safer. They pick him at the top of the draft. It doesn't work. And then they get desperate for a quarterback, and they trade up. They bring in a guy in Fields who had no help around him. They added him to a roster that didn't have that kind of cohesiveness, he didn't get to learn from anybody. And then it was a total disaster. And I think the story of the Bears season is they've made a lot of mistakes in terms of roster building, and that's why they're 7-10, but they've also made a lot of great moves too. And that's why they're adding the first overall pick to a 7-10 roster, which not many teams get the opportunity to do. So mistakes sunk this season, but good moves set themselves up for the future. We'll see if what they do at number 1. I think Bears fans didn't want to see this in last week, but I think it's a pretty easy decision that they go with a quarterback at number 1 and reset the wage scale. And I understand that Tevin Jenkins got his ass kicked and it wasn't all Fields' fault or whatever, but Fields has not shown enough. I went through the numbers last podcast. They don't rank as above average as a passing offense, even since Fields returned from injury. I imagine they're just going to sit and take a quarterback, but who knows? Polls might. It sounds like they're running Eberflus back, and maybe through that same logic, they run back Fields.
I don't know. I'm not confident in what they're going to do whatsoever. They have made surprising moves, and man, I'm sure it'll be real tempting to say we believe in Fields. Everybody here likes him. We have a huge offer for the first overall pick. Run that back. Like I can't imagine that won't be tempting. But
yeah.
I mean, I would also go with one of the top quarterbacks. I think they're so good this year. But man, I don't know what they're going to do. I have no clue.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do either, because Poles has always done the opposite of what I would do to varying degrees of success.
If you stick with Fields and you're wrong, it's just
that's my whole thing. If you stick with Fields, why wouldn't he demand a contract right then and there? Like,
I would then.
you're forcing him. You're handing him the keys and giving him so much leverage, and all of a sudden your guys who you're paying are like, Montez Sweat and Justin Fields and Tremaine Edmonds, and it's like, is this going to be the best team in the league at any point, or is it just always going to be okay? Like again, Montez Sweat hasn't proven that he's worth the contract. Like Zach Tom locked him up today. I'm sorry to say, like they've handed out some oversized contracts to good players, but like you can't do. I think there's only so many of those that you can give out, and I think you're basically giving one of those out to Fields if you pass on number one. Like,
all I'm saying is the Giants have to swallow a $45 million cap hit next year with Daniel Jones.
And what's the difference between what Fields has shown and Daniel Jones?
Well, I think Fields has a lot more upside.
I agree with that, but like, is that really that much of a safer move? Like, I don't know.
In terms of what
Fields
they've
is
delivered
quite as
so
bad
far.
under pressure. I don't think Fields fumbles the ball as much. I don't disagree with you on this take. I do think Fields has shown more than Daniel Jones. I think even last year you probably couldn't have gotten a second for Daniel Jones, and I think this year you definitely can for Fields.
You don't think you could have gotten a second for Daniel Jones last year?
But if you hold on to Fields this year, and Fields is definitely asking for more than Daniel Jones.
It's very interesting because, maybe what would scare me is that it's not even about paying your quarterback a bunch of money. That's not what would scare me, even though that's a very big deal. What if you pay Fields and you are wrong?
Yeah.
It would be, you would be, even if you are a Bears fan who believes in Fields, which I don't think is a ridiculous thing to be, you have to understand that the odds are heavily against Fields at this point. And you at least have to think that there is a chance it doesn't pan out. And if you have to give him a massive contract to see when you're in a position to draft a guy or multiple different guys who you wouldn't have to do that with, I don't know, man. It just seems tough.
Yeah.
And like, how bad could that be? Like, okay, Poles, you're done. Like, if Fields goes and it's like no better, and all of a sudden Drake May or Williams is fantastic and wins Rookie of the Year next year, it's like, oh. And if you're wrong, it won't be fixable. You have to get it right this time. It is not something, you will never have this opportunity ever again. It'll never be this good.
And look at what Jordan Love did today. Like, that's the guy you're competing against. I mean, seriously, the guy looks amazing. He looks like an absolute franchise quarterback. He was amazing in structure. He has avoided picks while hitting spectacular throw after spectacular throw these past couple weeks. I mean, we talk about the game CJ Stroud had. Like, Jordan Love is putting up numbers in his first year as a starter that are just as good as CJ Stroud in some respects. Like, I saw a stat today. Like,
should he win Rookie of the Year
in the NBA? You might be able to, but I saw like 4,100 yards and 32 touchdowns. The only other quarterbacks that have put up those numbers in their first year as a starter is Kurt Warner and Patrick Mahomes. And that's kind of an arbitrary number, obviously, but
Still good.
It's still really good. And you can't be if you think Fields is behind Love as a quarterback, which he is, and you're going to lock that in forever, like, you have some ground to make up, like I think that it was a good reminder today that they should not just get complacent. And they're last in the division, right? they got some serious making up.
Last in the division, probably have the worst quarterback in the division, depending on what happens with Kirk.
Right. I think that they got to make the move that raises the ceiling, because I thought that this year, while it was solid, they went from the worst team in the league to 7, and they went from the worst team in the league to the 9th. Like, congratulations. Like, that's not enough to run everything back. Like, let's be serious here. I know that the Bears aren't used to having success, and so they when they get any of it, they just latch on like, oh my God, these are our guys. But it 9th is not a 9th in the draft order is not like this hugely successful season.
Yeah, the Panthers were 9th in the draft. What was it, last year?
True. They should not trade DJ Moore away.
Yes.
They should not trade DJ Moore away.
Yeah. Probably not, man. They should also try not to be the worst team in the league next year.
Right.
They won't be that. That's certainly that's for sure.
I don't know. I understand the case for keeping Fields. I can't agree with it, but I feel you. Fields is your guy, and things probably would get better regardless if you drafted another receiver. And I sort of understand, like the opportunity cost of taking another quarterback. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, in 10 years, you're going to look back at this decision and you'll say, Fields, May, or Williams, which one of those 3 guys was the best? That's what I would have done, is just taken them.
Yeah.
I just would have done that. Opportunity cost be damned, even if it is Marvin Harrison Jr., or even if it is a big pick package.
And people it's a big pick package for a reason, right? Like, and Fields is not a big pick package for a reason. It's it just, the value shows how good the options are, so I think so.
Right. The fact that every other fan base is like, man, like Giants fans are like, what should we give up to move up to number 1?
And look at and they're not like, what would we give up to get Justin Fields? Look, and look at what happened to Ohio State's passing offense when they moved on from Fields to Stroud. Like, they got a better passer, and the concern with Stroud wasn't that he was a one-read type of quarterback, right? Like, that was the concern with Fields. He would drop back, take one step, and get the ball out quick, run. Like Stroud, it was full field reads left and right, and as good as the Ohio State offense was under Fields, you brought in a really, like, even more spectacular guy in Stroud, and everything opened up. And it's Bears fans wondering, like, why are we only calling screens? Why aren't we letting Fields air it out? It's like, some of that might be his own limitations, and like, he's taken a ton of sacks over the course of his career, and I just don't think that he just has not shown enough. Do
you want to talk, which East division do you want to talk about? NFC or AFC?
Let's talk AFC.
AFC East, our Little Caesars game of the week, Bills Dolphins.
Yeah, Bills beat the Dolphins. I think I still can't quite wrap my head around that the Dolphins lost the division. I mean, they just felt like they were in such pure control over the course of the year, and everybody else.
They did have a lot of injuries in this game. Oh yeah, I feel like. But so did the Bills have had a lot of injuries all year.
Yeah,
it was definitely a very weird game. I mean, the Dolphins did blow it. It was very nice by the Bills. The Bills took care of their business, and there's only so bad you can be with Josh Allen, and despite injuries, their defense played well. But I mean, with the Dolphins, it's like you just had so many injuries on defense, their game plan. And this is not saying this necessarily wasn't their game plan against Allen other times, but they were sending crazy amounts of heat at him. And it's just like totally wild. And I think when you're missing your top edges, it's like, well, if we don't Allen's just going to be able to sit back there and, either pick us apart or not have to be worried about forcing anything. And if nothing's there, he'll just be able to take off most likely because he'll have so much time to let everything develop. It's like, well, you can't really let that happen. So we're just going to send heat at him. And maybe that creates some, average cover zero disaster plays for us. But if we can get Allen to maybe make a decision a little bit too quick or get him on his toes, we could possibly get a few turnovers, from a turnover-prone quarterback, even with him being great. And that's how we can win the game. And it worked. Their defense played really, really well through all things considered. They only gave up 14 points. They got 3 turnovers. Granted, part of this was because one of the interceptions was like a borderline punt. I get, on 4th down in the end zone. It's fine. And I understand the Bills' red zone efficiency was super, super bad as well. But I think overall, from like where the Dolphins' defense was working from, it was a really good performance. But then you get down towards the end of things, and the guys in rotation you have start to show, and Allen starts to get a little bit more comfortable. And it's like, all right, here's Melvin Ingram on, Dalton Kincaid down the field or whatever.
Too.
Right. I mean, it's just like, that's just a tough one, man. And then you give up a big punt return, so it's like, Yeah,
and a play where like the injury occurs and like knocks the entire punt return coverage out of the game. It was certainly. It's one they've got to feel sick about. It's one they've got to feel sick about. I think it's got to be really tough for Mike McDaniel and company to spin this. All of a sudden they're in the wild card round, and they've got to go be the underdogs after all year. It's look at the offense, number 1 in this, number 1 in that, number 1 most creative, who can stop them all year? And then all of a sudden they're coming in as a second place team in the division to a team that got nothing but negative press the entire season. This was the Dolphins' year. This was everything lining up and everything. The Bills are making midseason firings and all of this. And still it's the Bills over the Dolphins at the end. Matt.
And the Bills get more hate because the standard is higher for them. And I said that at the beginning of the year, and it's true now.
Yep.
They are I know they don't have the Super Bowl. I know. But they're in that same Eagles-Chiefs category. It's the same thing. Except the Bills really didn't even fall off quite. I'm probably, in terms of how far removed they are from their standard and how understandable it is, considering that the Bills have major injuries, I'm probably the least concerned about the Bills compared to the Chiefs and the Eagles, who going into this year were 2 of the top favorites. And now it's the Eagles are in the wild card and the Chiefs look like it's going to be a real battle to get back. I think Buffalo is totally can win any game, but I think both these teams are both they can win any game you put up to them. They're totally able to go on runs. I could see them losing any game too. There's no team I'm going to be confident against them.
Yeah, I think.
But they will have home field as long as they're not playing Baltimore. So that's good.
Yeah, that is good. And it was really relieving to see a good Stephon Diggs game finally and to see him make some plays after being pretty silent in the second half of the season. That was the one thing that really concerned me. It was man, Diggs really not getting much going. They play the Patriots, who play a lot of cover 1. That's a matchup that Diggs averages, I think I did the math last week, 90 yards and a touchdown against. He does nothing, and it's man, that's usually, I remember last year watching Diggs when he was one-on-one kill the Patriots, and this year it's just not happening. And they're the worst team. They're not the worst team against man coverage. They're worse than they've ever been against man coverage down the stretch in the Josh Allen is good era. And I don't know if they have the horses around Allen, but then Diggs balls out in this one, and I really like James Cook and Dalton Kincaid has a good performance, and all of a sudden those concerns don't seem as real. And their linebackers they played pretty well tonight. It looked like on the broadcast angle, and their secondary, hopefully Rasul Douglas comes back. It all of a sudden, Ed
Taylor
Oliver
Rapp
has
had
been
a fantastic final drive. Oh my God.
Yeah. It was. the defense isn't a total liability. No way is it. So
No.
yeah,
They actually ended up being top 10 in total EPA on defense and top 3 in total EPA on offense for the season.
and they have the easiest first round matchup. No disrespect to the Steelers, but that's what y'all are.
Especially with TJ hurt.
Yeah, especially with TJ.
That's a very, very
out.
tough.
So
tough. Even the Steelers' magic. Gonna be
Culture
tough.
ain't-
The Steelers' magic may very well be TJ
yeah,
Watt.
the Steelers magic. Yes. Well, TJ Watt got hurt for most of last year, and they still got that winning record.
Okay, well, it's different when it's about getting to 9 wins.
Yeah, fair. 9 wins in playoffs is very different. But yeah, I think that the Bills have got to feel pretty good about where they're at, all things considered. Yeah, and you're right, Matt. The standard for them is very high, and for the Dolphins, it's not as high, and that's why it just snuck up on me like this. I guess I didn't even quite consider I never quite felt like it could happen. Like, oh, the Bills are going to win this division. It's just like, man, really? With the way the Dolphins are playing, like their best football, and the Bills their worst. And then as far as the Dolphins go, Tyreek has got to hang on to some of these footballs, first of all.
One of them was a PI, but you're not wrong. He's had a few bad drops this year.
Yeah, he has.
What's up with that?
Justin Jefferson, I fear. I would not push the Tyreek wide receiver 1 agenda, even though he had such a crazy season. The drops are really getting killer, and
it's just they're always in such it's always such bad timing drops.
Yeah, big plays. Big plays.
Watching him turn into Ted Ginn is tough.
Yeah. Both of the Dolphins speedster wide receivers at times this year or the past 2 years have really had head scratching drops, and I've just never seen the Dolphins go into a primetime game and look like they're the rushing offense that they are. You look at all the numbers, they're number 1 in all these rushing stats. Raheem Mostert is knocking on some historical records in terms of touchdowns scored. And then they get into these big games and it never looks like, at a point earlier in the game it did, but I've never seen a big Dolphins game that matches their efficiency numbers on offense. And then that puts more pressure on Tua, and he doesn't.
I think it's 2 things.
Yeah.
Misdirection stuff, fantastic. There is a limit to how much you can do it. You can't run all those plays a million times. It's not like we're the Titans, we have Derrick Henry. Here's him 40 times.
And even that had its ceiling, they would get to
even
about
that
this
had
point.
its ceiling. So I think it's super efficient, and I think the trickery is great, and I think all that stuff is really good, but it can't. I mean, I'm looking for another reason why they don't just spam it a lot. I think the other reason is that maybe my other thought is, the great plays are great and the bad plays are really bad.
Yeah,
and then you can get yourself behind on a set of downs really easily because it's like, while you have the fast guys, if you don't fool them. Sometimes it can end up with you just nothing you can do.
Yeah, with the
audience, you brought that up at early on in the year when Achane was on this historical pace. It's like, man, they had the number 1 rushing offense in the league, but it was all stretch and outside zone. And you're like, well, those can be really big negative plays too.
Yeah, that's almost replacing sacks in their offense because they get rid of the ball so fast. But, they had some huge losses tonight, including one that ended up being a sack when they pitched it out to Achane and then he dropped back to pass the football.
Yeah.
I just think at the end of the day, if you're looking to get a bucket, just a straight up bucket getter quarterback is better than a certain play or play call. I think that's just one of the truths about the league is you just need sometimes a guy who can put it on his back. And even if things go wrong, it doubles your chances of getting a successful play late in the down. And Tua is just not a bucket getter. And I think that what are his clutch moments? He got a big one early in the season that bombed to Tyreek Hill, but against the Chiefs, he kind of fell apart. And I don't know. I don't really, again, my Tua stance has been the same throughout recorded history, you know, like I don't think of him as that tier 1 quarterback. And tonight it's scheme versus Josh Allen going dummy mode. And guess what one is more, like wins the division for the 4th year in a row, you know, like I just would rather have the guy at quarterback than rely on, you know, something that looks really great on a whiteboard and something that is really great on a whiteboard and really great on a football field. But you're right, Matt, like in a 2-minute situation, everybody knows what's coming. Everybody knows what they have to stop. And with the Bills, it's everything. Like Allen just puts more stress on you when he drops back. He can do more things. And in those gotta have it situations, I think that's what you want.
I'll also say, I think.
Go ahead, Matt.
The receiver depth.
Yeah, that's a good
Miami
point.
Is just not strong enough.
Tough to watch Sherfield make that catch off the bobble.
Some toe drag swag.
You know, so I don't necessarily 100% disagree with everything you're saying about Tua, but I think that it's tough to go carve up. It's a fickle thing, you know. One day you have a receiver group that is so great, we have to, you know, remind ourselves that your EPA is not just you, and then the next day you're Justin Herbert, and it's not your fault.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, injury. How much better is the Bills receiving core than what the Dolphins have, even with Waddle
I think it's
out?
Better.
Dalton Kincaid is
whatever
a big
happened to
mover.
Having some solid guys. And it doesn't have to be
Gabe Davis is worse than solid, and he's wide receiver too. Shakir is nice. Shakir is nice. Kincaid is nice. Okay.
Dawson Knox would be the second best pass catcher on the Dolphins tonight.
You're right. The Bills did. Braxton Berrios would not crack the starting lineup for.
If people are going to criticize Shane Steichen for getting the ball to whoever that third running back was, the final play for the Dolphins went to Chase Claypool. Let's be serious.
Yeah, that was yeah. They were leaning on him a little bit towards the end there. That's not good. He's fast though. They had to bring him in.
Big and fast, height, weight, speed. Sometimes it's all you need. But
apparently, it's supposed to be a massive snowstorm in Kansas City this week, and then the game is like projected to be 5 degrees. So instead of playing at home,
that's going to be a very weird game.
Miami gets to go on the road and play at Arrowhead.
They're going to lose 5 degrees.
Thank you.
They're going to get bounced, aren't they? This is going to be so
I have
sad.
no idea what's going to happen in that game. I think that's just
that game could go.
One.
That game could.
I have no clue. I'll be tuning in. Snow games are a good thing. Anybody who's pro dome.
That's the isn't that the Peacock game?
The Peacock.
Yes, it is the game that's exclusively on Peacock. But if all of our listeners, that's so dumb. The Peacock game.
Streamies. We will be
piracy. It is definitely okay to pirate that. I was kind of hoping that the Steelers would play the Chiefs on the Peacock game, just so like the worst matchup goes there, and like Peacock gets no subscriptions, as like every fan who like is thinking like, oh, do I need to watch the playoff game on Peacock could think like, yeah, that might be the one that I skip, and it didn't make any money. I was kind of hoping for that outcome.
Right.
Sorry, Steelers fans, you're not only the worst team in the playoffs, but you're also the most deserving to be on Peacock. So,
well, I don't know if they're the worst team in the playoffs. They're definitely the worst team in the AFC playoffs.
Who's worse than them in the NFC?
The way the Eagles have been playing, it might be them.
I don't even know what to say to that. Yeah, sadly, yeah, you might be right. You might be right.
It's tough, man.
I don't know. I don't want to hate on them too much. They had backups in too, but like
Well, they were trying to play for that. Hurts was in there, was he not? Like he got hurt, I guess.
He played. Yeah, he threw 16 passes.
It was out of hand when
he got
when they
hurt,
took him
man.
out.
He really messed up his finger.
Yeah, it was hanging by. That was pretty disgusting.
And then AJ Brown got what did AJ Brown end up getting? Also, Arthur Smith just got fired.
Did he actually?
Just now?
Wow. That's a good way to end the show. Jamal Williams and Jameis Winston fucking around sent him packing. Wow, that's unbelievable. I think it was valid for the Falcons to do it. Honestly, I think that he is. I've been saying it all year. I think that his offense was low ceiling, and I think that the way he played was just a bit too, outside zone oriented and not going for the strikes enough when they have the skill position talent that they do.
Yeah.
The fantasy people were right.
Fantasy players and stuff.
Players were
getting
right.
mad about that. I don't think that's a good look. I understand where he's coming from. Like I think that would make me mad too if I was in his shoes, but it's still just not the best to bring that up in a press conference or talk about it. To be honest with you. And I think that he really, I mean, I don't know what anybody else thought, but he really lost the fan base when he was talking about that crap. It's like that.
Yeah, I think that he lost a lot of, you're right, Matt. He did lose.
Like if your coach was going up there and being like, I don't give a damn what the fantasy players say. I don't know. Maybe that's just total.
Yeah, you can say that
opinion.
if you're winning football games, but
right.
You weren't.
Yeah, you can't. You can't
imagine you're on the Falcons and they're not giving Bijan the ball, and you're like, well, this guy is not giving the best dudes the ball. And then he's going up there and talking about how he doesn't give a damn about fantasy, and be like, that'd be a little tough.
Look at what the Cowboys do, man. When I chart a Cowboys game, I like to chart targets, and not only targets where they get thrown to, targets where they're the first read. You do CD by the end of one of those games, I'll have like 30 tick marks down with end arounds and just looks where he's the first read in the progression, where he gets a chance to get open, where a lot of the times they'll throw it to him anyway. And guess what? The CeeDee Lamb just went crazy, and the Cowboys are the number two seed in the entire conference, right? The
1,749 yards on the season. That is ridiculous.
Jesus.
What was that number?
1,749 yards
for CD.
Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then for how much is it for, like, when I chart a Falcons game, I don't want Michael Pruitt cutting into anybody's snaps. It's like right. You got to build the offense around your best players and funneling the football to them, and then just enough throws to somewhere else to make them respect that. Whereas it's total flip-flop with the Falcons, where it's like they're the change-up and they're just hoping to be like more efficient on those change-up plays than anybody else in the league. But the base thing that they call is like getting the ball to Tyler Algier and Jonnu Smith. And it's just not, there's a very clear way that I think you could streamline that to be more efficient, like dial up more plays to somebody else. No one else seems to have this problem where they like cannot dial up any plays to their many weapons. Like,
right.
I don't know if I've ever seen it. Like, obviously we need to get Amon-Ra the ball more. Like, that's true, or we need to get Christian Watson the ball more. Like, I've seen it for players, but not for like a whole offensive skill position group.
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb ends the year with 181 targets, by the way.
That's nice. That's a nice number to be at.
That's really...
CeeDee deserves Offensive Player of the Year more than Tyreek Hill does. I think he made a little comeback there at the end. Maybe.
I didn't realize how great of a season he was having.
There's a case for it.
But McCaffrey is probably the shoe-in more than any wide receiver. So
We're at least getting CD first team All Pro.
Yes, he definitely deserves that. Him and I think still
First team All Pros are not easy to come by, and it does not take that many of them to get you into the Hall.
now you get that plus by your name in the PFR reference sheet. That's a big deal. That is a big deal.
Yeah,
It is a big deal.
And with Jefferson got well over 1,000 yards this year, despite the fact that he missed like the entire middle section of the season. So,
and despite the whole quarterback situation, just ridiculous.
ridiculous. Those two might be number 1 and 2 right now. I think that they are.
I don't remember. We did our receiver rankings at the beginning of the season. I don't remember where
I think we had Tyreek. I don't know where
we had CD
Tyreek
way too low, but also CD stepped up into like a whole new level this year. So
right.
That is true. That is true. It's definitely his best
We will
year,
not make the same mistake next year. He
clears Jalen Waddle, unfortunately, which I don't know if we.
Someone's pulling it up right now, and I'm sure they'll let us know.
We'll look at the film. We'll self-evaluate.
We were kidding.
Yeah,
I'm joking. But I think that does it for another episode of Stay Hot. The Browns and the Packers are in the playoffs. We'll be back on Wednesday to, of course, predict the playoffs or talk about the playoffs and, kind of those matchups. We will, of course, have our Tuesday film breakdown of another NFL draft prospect as well. So make sure you tune in to that. But until next time, thank you all so much for tuning into this episode. Hope you all had a great NFL season. And if you didn't, well, now you get the playoff season.
Yeah,
you get the draft.
You get the draft.
It. I played that game for a long time. It is just as fun.
It is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun.
But until next time, we will catch you on the flippity flop.